Alright, so 17 says find all the solutions of the equation in the interval 0 to 2 pi, and our equation is secant squared theta minus secant theta minus 2 equals 0. So if you look at this closely, you'll realize that this is in the form of a quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c, where our variable would be theta. In any event, I'm going to say that t equals secant theta, and I'm going to substitute in t for secant theta. So t squared minus t minus 2. Then I'm going to factor this. You probably remember this from Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So you get two numbers that multiply to be negative 2 and sum to be negative 1, because there's an understood 1 right here. Alright, so you put t here and there. Alright, two numbers that multiply to be 2. It's 2 and 1. And it's going to be a negative 2, but also it's going to sum to be negative 1, so it's going to be negative 2 and 1. Alright, so what we're going to do now is substitute secant theta back in to where t is. That's 2. Plus 1 equals 0. We're going to set each of these equal to 0. Okay, then we'll start working on secant theta minus 2 equals 0. We're going to move the 2 to the right side of the equal sign. So that gives us secant theta equals 2. So if you remember, these are the things you need to have memorized over here on the right. Secant theta equals 1 over cosine theta. So we're going to substitute 1 over cosine theta in for secant theta. Then we're going to multiply both sides by cosine theta. My pen is not acting right. So the cosines on the left cancel out, and it leaves 1 equals 2 times the cosine of theta. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2. And then that's going to give you 1/2 equals cosine theta, or cosine theta equals 1/2. So we're dealing with a positive result for cosine. So then we look at the memory tool here. All students take calculus. So the only two quadrants that we can get a positive cosine result is quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So we're going to draw 60-degree angle off of in both of those quadrants. Alright, so it'll be 360 degrees reference from here. So we take 60 off of that, we end up at 300 degrees. So the answer for the solution for secant theta equals 2 is theta equals 60 degrees and theta equals 300 degrees, which equals pi over 3, and that equals 5 pi over 3. And the way you get from 60 degrees to pi over 3 is you multiply you do 60 degrees times pi over 180, and then 300 times pi over 180, and you get these values here. Alright, so then we go look at secant theta plus 1. We're going to move this 1 over to the right side by subtracting 1 from both sides. That gives us secant theta equals -1. Then going back to our identity up here, secant theta equals 1 over cosine theta, so we're going to substitute in 1 over cosine theta for secant. And that gives us 1 over cosine theta equals -1. We'll multiply both sides by cosine theta. That's going to cancel out cosine theta on the left. That leaves us 1 equals negative cosine theta, or negative cosine theta equals 1. We're going to multiply both sides by -1, and that gives us a positive cosine theta equals -1. Okay, so our special triangles here do not cover a cosine of 1. Okay, so I know that the unit circle will. So remember that the cosine is cosine represents the x values, sine represents the y values. So if I'm looking for a cosine of -1, I'm looking for an x value at one of these 4 points of -1. And 180 degrees here has a cosine value of -1. So cosine of 180 degrees is equal to -1, according to the unit circle. Now, if you were to graph out the cosine function, you could tell the same thing, sort of like what we did on the sine function on an earlier problem. Might have been problem 15. So our answer for this is 180 degrees. Theta equals 180 degrees, which equals pi. So the solutions for this problem are theta equals pi over 3 comma 5 pi over 3 comma pi. Now if I were to go backing up a little bit, if I were to graph cosine, cosine is going to start right here at 1, at 0 degrees, and then 1, because your x-axis is your degrees and your y-axis is your amplitude. So notice that where we have pi, the graph is -1 right here. So that's the other way you can determine what angle cosine is -1. So in any event, the solution to this is theta equals pi over 3 comma pi, 5 pi over 3 comma pi. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.